Let's talk now, though, to the spokesperson for the Matthew Dunn family, the Harry Dunn family, sorry, Radd Seiger. The inquest was held over the last 4 days. A coroner has criticised the US government for a lack of training provided to employee Anne Sacoolas. You might remember that Harry Dunn was the young man who died tragically after a head-on collision with a car being driven by Anne Sacoolas on the wrong side of the road, up outside RAF Croughton in Northamptonshire. Let's talk now to Radd. Radd, a very good morning to you.
Mike, good morning to you.
Thanks very much for joining us. I mean, it's a terrible story. This, whenever we talk about it, I think people are reminded of how awful it was for Harry's family, how terrible it was that the US Embassy for such a long time didn't really provide any help or assistance of any kind. Anne Sacoolas was kind of, it seemed, rushingly moved out of the country and not brought back. Tell us about what happened with what the coroner said.
Yeah, Mike, that's the first point to make. Of course, is there is a real human tragedy behind this, and the family continue to suffer. But the development this week was the coroner held an inquest into Harry's death, and one of her concerns, as was ours, was what the Americans did about safety issues with all these people coming over from the US and driving on our narrow rural roads. And we've learned that very little, if anything, was done beforehand. But more worryingly, Mike, the coroner invited the American government to participate in the inquest, to come and give evidence, and they refused to do that. So the coroner has issued what's called a prevention of future deaths report, because she's not satisfied. Her job is to try and prevent future deaths. She's not satisfied with the way the American government have conducted themselves.
No, precisely right. And I mean, is there anything further the family can do to try and at least get some form of either admittance or something just out of the US government as to, I mean, the coroner's saying, that it would be good if a requirement was made to teach people coming here from US countries, US states, to actually learn how to drive on this side of the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the bizarre things that came out is half of that base, Mike, at Croughton in Northamptonshire is dedicated to the military side. The other half, is maybe some of your listeners will know, there are several hundred CIA officers there as well, and they do give training to the military folk, but for some reason, these people who ultimately work for the United States State Department have had no training. So they literally come as Mrs. Sacoolas did. They buy a car, they get the keys, they hop in the car, and they find out as soon as they get out there, it's a totally alien driving environment. And as Mrs. Sacoolas found last night, not only was there inadvertence, but there was lots of signage on the roads to help her stay on the right side of the road. She didn't recognize those signs, and then the inevitable happened. So it's you say, what more can we do? I'm not sure that there's anything more we could have done as a family. We, as you know, Mike, with your help and your listeners' help, we fought heroically to get Mrs. Sacoolas into our criminal justice system, which we did. This is all about what the family also want to do, what the coroner's statutory duty is to see if learnings can be taken from these things. And we just want now to make the world a safer place.
Yeah.
So this is ultimately up to the US government and the British government as well.
Yes. And I mean, is there anything else that the family can now do? Is there any other place they can go to try and seek to get more from the US government on this, or is this kind of the end of it?
Oh, it's certainly not the end of it. This is now in the coroner's hands. So the US government have a duty to respond to her and to tell her what they are now going to do, having failed to do it, to make sure that not only we who live outside those bases are safer, but also our American visitors are. And we know the overwhelming majority of them are great, decent people. But there has been a complete lack of duty of care in terms of safety outside. Quite astonishing.
Right. Of course. And the family will never get over what happened to Harry. Obviously, it was just awful and tragic and so unnecessary. But how are they doing?
Well, they feel relieved. They feel proud of their achievements. But as you say, you never move on from losing a loved one. They're trying to take steps forward. But Mike, it hasn't been helped by the U.S. government compounding their misery Not only did they kill Harry, they kicked this family when they were in their darkest hour by seeking to delay justice. And then it's been further compounded by their refusal to help the coroner even inquire into what more can be done to keep people safe. So there's a bit of anger and resentment and frustration there. So they're not going anywhere. We have to do what we can to make sure that Harry's death wasn't in vain. And if we have to, again, bring the Americans, hold them to account, bring them to task, then that's ultimately we will do. But, the fighting is behind us. This is all now about safety and decency. And let's hope that the Americans learn a lesson and not to mess with us as British people in our rights.
Absolutely. Radd, good to talk to you. Thank you once again for sharing the time with us. Radd Seiger, their spokesperson for the Dunn family.